But we're going to invite our first guest up here, Randy Goers of the Drone Radio Show. Let's give Randy a round of applause. Come on up, Randy.
Thanks, Chris.
So, Randy, before we even get into Randy's going to give us, basically, he has a podcast called The Drone Radio Show, has over 200,000 downloads. He's going to give us the top 10 things going on with drones that he has discovered through all his interviews. So we're going to get it thanks to his leadership. But before we go there, how did you learn about podcasting? How did you start the Drone Radio Show?
A little bit back story before that. You know, some people may know who I am just because of my normal day job. I'm a city planner with the city of Tampa, if you've heard of the mayor's program, the Envision Tampa project, I was the project manager to make that project move forward and try to create a better downtown for the city of Tampa. And my job now is to work with the departments and all the developers in downtown Tampa to really turn downtown Tampa into a vibrant community for the future. I bring that up only because to say that I know something about transforming communities. And that's really one of the interests that got me in the drones in creating a podcast. I had an interest in podcasts, and over 2.5 years ago, I attended a workshop that was hosted by Chris and the Florida podcasters that really talked about starting a podcast. I wanted to learn how to start a podcast. I didn't know if it was going to be about drones, but I went to the weekend workshop, met a lot of people that were starting podcasts, and learned how simple it was to start a podcast. And so I started mine on drones. And one of the things that I saw when I started the was that it's a transformative technology. The technology itself has the power to transform people's lives. It has the power to transform industries, and it has the power to transform communities. And that was really one of my interests as a city planner, was how this technology was going to change industries, communities, and people. That's what my show is all about. It's about I don't know anything really about the technology. There are guys here that know more about the actual drone technology than I do, but I do know what the technology does for people, for companies, and for communities. And my show is called the Drone Radio Show, and it's a show about people and a show about drones and the people that use them for business, fun, and research. And I remember when you first came, it was Podfest. You came to one of the first Podfests, and you had two ideas. I don't remember the first one. Do you remember it? I had travel was one of my big ideas. I always wanted to do something to travel, but there was a lot of travel podcasts out there. And then you said, hey, I'm thinking of traveling and drone, and we all said, nix this one, do the drones, because it's hot. And then next thing you know, now he's a global leader getting invited to conferences all over the world, and just really proud to see how you've now become this amazing leader within the niche of drones. Okay. So let's jump right into the content. So we're going to start with the 10 innovative things that you need, what you could do with the drone. First one is compete in a new sport. So what's going on? Tell us about the sport of drones. Drone racing has become one of probably the biggest business opportunities for drones. A lot of people thought it was something that a lot of young kids are out there doing, but it's really become one of the biggest business growth areas this year and really over the next few years. The Drone Racing League was started 3 years ago by Nick Hornaczewski, if I'm pronouncing his name right, and he got some major financing from some people in the United States. I think they started with a $10 million investment, and they produce this high-quality drone racing content. They have their own pilots that they bring along. It's sort of like an organized racing event. These guys are trained to fly drones. They produce this high-quality podcast or these events that are on YouTube, and they just finished their third season. The interesting thing about it is Liberty Media invested $20 million into the Drone Racing League just a few months ago. Liberty Media bought the Formula One Racing League in January, and so now they're investing in this Drone Racing League. And the Drone Racing League this year held 6 events in 6 different cities in the United States. They held their semifinals in Munich and their finals in London. So you can see that their Liberty Mutual sees this as an opportunity to leverage Formula One's sort of format in the drone racing. The other thing, they have Bud Light as sponsor, Swatch, ESPN2. They're going after major advertisers and sponsors, and drone racing has become really the breeding ground for this next wave of growth in the industry. And you're going to see a lot more of it over the future. And this is a 3-year
In 3 years, this has happened. It'd be great if you could help them. Let's get them over to Tampa or St. Pete somewhere.
Well, there's, not only you have the professional league, but there's also the grassroots league. There's an organization called Multi-GP, which if you saw, Drone Racing League is going to the elite sports. MGP is the grassroots. They've got over 1,000 clubs worldwide of people that are just interested in drone racing. So anybody can go to a multi-GP event. They can learn about drone racing. They can have someone show them how to race. They can look at some of their quads, and they can actually start participating in their own community. And they've also created their own national championship.
So how much is some of the prize money that some of these teams win? Like how much money is in the sport?
The sport itself has got, the pilots are on contracts for about $80,000 a year. What was really interesting, they have if you want to learn how to fly a drone, you can go to the Drone Racing League website. They have a simulator there where you can fly their actual courses that they created in these different cities. And you can learn how to fly. They had a contest where they just opened their simulator up to the world. They took, and people competed against each other like a video game online. They took the top 24 people that scored the highest points, flew them to New York, and had this esports competition for a weekend where these 24 pilots competed against each other. The winner joined the professional ranks and was given a contract for $80,000 to fly in this year's competition. So they went from a video game to esports to an actual pilot flying with them. So they've really been able to leverage some really innovative aspects of this whole industry.
All right, so let's talk about the life-saving of drones. Well, how are we using it to save lives?
The public safety aspect of drones, people have acknowledged for a long time. It's just taken a little while to get off, to be able to integrate it because public safety organizations take a while to queue up. But search and rescue is a big aspect of it. Police and fire is used, being able to look at fire suppression areas to be able to determine which is the hot,
human being in,
the real hot area. What's really gotten a really big deal is the idea of this digital forensics. Police and when there's an accident, there's an awful lot of time spent in recording what's happening at the scene of the crime or the scene of the accident. And then if there's a court case, you have all this time of people going back trying to figure out what really happened. So there's this new field that's emerging where after a major event that you can take a drone, put it up, it takes care of and it collects all the data for the entire scene. It can develop 3D models and it can be used later on. I interviewed a guy that is training or working with a project in the state of Michigan where on traffic accidents where you have an accident, the officer's got to take care of all the statements, get all the stuff. And then there might be a case a year down the road, and everybody's got to try to remember what happened. And they got to look at the notes. Sometimes the intersection has changed, so nothing really makes sense. They're not going to try to use drones during the accident after it's over. Spend 15 minutes, have a drone record everything, and then if there's a court case, they just pull that data out, develop the 3D model, and everything is exactly the way it was the day of the accident. For
forensics, Neil Gilarte, the guy that was just up here, he used to do forensics after murder. He used to work for the police department. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Neil Gilarte, he was shot at because during whatever happened at that house, there was retribution. He was in the house, and they got shot at. He had to jump over the fence. So it's very dangerous, those scenes. So having a drone, I could see, would really help someone in that situation. Let's go into understanding our environment. What's going on there?
There's a lot of movement in organizations using drones to help them in conservation. The National Conservancy, they were monitoring the erosion of the coastline in California. They don't have any money for drones, so they developed this program to elicit citizen scientists, they call them. And what they asked over a summer was anyone that had a drone after a major storm, if they would just take their drone up, take some images of the coast, and then send their images in with all their data. And over one summer, they compiled a tremendous amount of data on erosion in California, more than they could ever hope to acquire on their own. This picture was taken by an organization called Save Our Seas, which has got one mission, that is to look at sharks and save sharks. They use drones to map ecosystems in the Seychelles and really determine where the shark habitat was. And what they found was what's interesting. Traditionally, they count sharks because they want to know what the shark population is. They have to get out in these boats, and they have to just look in the water and count the sharks. And the sharks swim, so they go, did I count that one? I don't know if did I count this one. They're moving too fast. With the drone, and the drone can get up there and see everything, and with the resolution, they can get down and count even the small, what they call them, the shark pups, and really have a record of being able to see these sharks. The most interesting one was there's an organization which studies the health of whales, and it turns out that that the whale blowhole will emit their basically the whale snot that has their DNA in it. And so what they fly a drone through is when the whale shoots up and shoots their blowhole, they fly a drone through. It has this material which collects the whale snot, and they were able to collect and analyze the DNA to determine if the whale's healthy or not. And they call it a snot bot that flies around these.
Snot rocket?
Well, snot bot.
Snot bot.
So there's these interesting, the conservationists are finding this real interesting way of using drones to promote the good of the area.
All right, take us through the people saving elephants in Africa.
This was one of the more interesting stories. The Lindbergh Foundation was formed 40 years ago on the 50th anniversary of Charles Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic. Charles Lindbergh and his wife had this really big interest in the natural environment and the idea of leveraging technology to support the environment. So the Lindbergh Foundation, their mission was to use technology to support environmental concerns. In Africa, elephants are poached at an alarming rate. In 2014, 40,000 elephants were killed by poachers. And what they do is they poison the water supply. And then the elephants will come, drink the water, they'll die, they come back, cut their tusk. So not only were they just killing elephants, but all the other animals that drank from the water supply were dying as well. 2 years ago, the Lindbergh Foundation created a spin-off called called Air Shepherds. And they use drones to look for poachers. At nighttime, they have the infrared sensors that can detect where the poachers are. And they've gotten very good at it to the point where not only do they don't use it as a catch to poachers, they use it as a deterrent. They let the poachers know when the drones are going to be flying and what region they're going to be flying, because they found out the poachers don't want to fly when the drone, or don't want to go where the drones are flying. And so they found that every time they send up drones, they advertise our drones are flying in this area, poaching activity goes down. So their goal is to be able to create this net of drones that'll be flying in all the areas of Africa to be able to rid the area of poaching and save elephants.
And that's really important, because I'm big into the rhino conservation, and they're shipping the rhinos out of Africa to conservation areas here in America because they're just killing every single one, and they're down to very few. All right, so let's talk about diversifying an economy.
The thing that's really, because the technology is going, there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of synergies in certain areas of the country, and people are starting to build economic development programs around it. Nobody does it better than North Dakota, which is just amazing. If you think that North Dakota would become the drone capital, they call it the Silicon Valley of drones, because if you want to do anything with drones, if you go up to North Dakota, it's amazing what's happening there. The FAA has 6 test sites in the country which were tasked to help integrate drones into our national airspace. And each test site is given certain responsibilities. So there's one located in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Grand Forks is also a base for the Predator, the Reaper drones. All the military drones are in this base, and so you've got that technology. The University of North Dakota has one of the leading aviation schools in the country, and that's where all the drone pilots are trained out of. So right out of North Dakota, you got pilots looking for opportunities, either go into the military or they begin looking for the commercial area. They created this entity called Grand Sky, which is located right next to the military base, and it's designed only for commercial applications and trying to transfer the knowledge of drones to the commercial sector. And then they got all these economic development organizations built around trying to attract drone companies, drone startups, anything that has to do with drones. If you go to the Grand Forks Economic Development page, you'll see that they have, their goal is to diversify their economy, and there's 3 areas. One of them is agriculture is number 1, energy is number 2, and drones is number 3. That's how much they really look at this. They've invested over $40 million over the last 10 years into developing this ecosystem, and it's amazing what they've done. They've even, Europe is farther ahead in drones than the United States is, because the regulations were a lot more open in Europe. And so you have companies in Europe who are more advanced than our companies here. They're coming to the United States because they know that the regulations are going to change. North Dakota is saying, if you're going to come to North Dakota. We'll help you we'll set you up here. So they got all these European companies that know how to fly the next level drones, setting up in North Dakota, getting ready for the next wave. So it's an amazing group of people up there. They have one of the largest 1 million cups in the country. There was a guy that went there that spoke at their 1 million cups on his drone startup idea. By the end of the day, he walked out with a $500,000 commitment to start his company.
Wow.
That's how excited they are and how much kind of commitment there is in the area.
That's good to know.
But other areas around the country are now they see the opportunity for creating economies around that, and that's where they're heading towards.
And how about for the kids? You said prepare our children?
STEM education, drones is the next area, next level up for STEM education. We know that robotics, you see it in the high school, robotics are now attracting people, but drones are now becoming that next level because of the fascination part of it. It's hard for kids to go out and just say, I want to go out and buy a robot and work on it. You can buy a drone anywhere now, so kids can have access to the drone. But the education part of it is got these other dimensions of dynamics. I interviewed a couple of teachers, one of them Kentucky, that created a whole program around drones where kids are taught the aerodynamics about it, the history of drones, the safety, how to build a drone. They put in teams to talk about teamwork. And the interesting thing, she had 3 classes. She had a girls class, a boys class, and then a mixed class. And it was interesting to see the dynamics, because the technology field doesn't have a whole lot of women in it, and that's one of the things that's always talked about. And if you talk to the women that are in the field, they'll always say they had an interest in technology when they were young. And so if you can get them around middle school age and sort of light that fire, then you've sort of opened some doors. She said when you have the class of just girls, they're all much more open to the learning experience, and they all want to get in and learn the technology. When you have the class with just the guys are all just trying to compete with each other, and they're trying to make the best drone, and and that kind of stuff. When they're mixed, she said the girls sort of fade in the background, because there's the whole dynamics of middle school kids, boys and girls, and the learning isn't achieved. But she felt that if you could have just middle school girls learning drones, you could help them achieve some technology growth. So the STEM education part of it is really starting to grow. We're seeing a lot more curriculums around the country trying to advance this. And there's a whole big movement of women in drones.
I went on your website. You have a whole section, women in drones.
There's a big nurturing. Every conference has a women in drones segment to try to help promote the opportunities for women in drones. There's a lot of women who are doing a lot of really great things with drones. I've interviewed a few that are just doing some really tremendous things, have some great ideas, starting companies.
And women, I mean, I've seen are more collaborative in nature, especially in the younger age. So I'm sure they're helping each other with the projects. Okay, movies. I think we went into a little movie making, but tell us anything that maybe we're not aware of. By
far the greatest, the highest use of drones is something to do with videography. That's almost everything about a drone is geared towards videography. So movie making, film making is really big. The biggest thing about it, it started out with just a few people using drones. Now they're used in just about every commercial. They're used in a lot of different television shows and movies. But what's happening is you're starting to see a lot of entities using it for videography. And a couple of things happen. Part of it is, it's a lot of great opportunities that want to make some money, get into an industry. The other part is we're finding out is that there's a lot of people lowballing the price. People that were, I interviewed a guy just recently who made his living doing Fox Sports, the extreme sports. He was the guy that would hang outside the helicopter with his camera and take these amazing images. So a couple of years ago he started with drones, and he says a couple of years ago he could charge $1,500 a day for a drone shot. So now it's costing, he can't get much more than $500 a day because of all the other people moving forward. Same thing happens in our local industry. You find people that a couple of years ago that could have probably charged $1,000 for a real estate shot. Today those people are getting, the real estate guy's asking, is only paying for a couple $100 because there's so many other people out there who can do this.
It's bringing the price down.
Bringing the price down. The key part about it, though, is that there's a lot of people who can bring the price down. It takes a lot of work to bring the quality up. And that's what I just had an experience with a friend of mine that she put a bid in for a project and it was turned down because of the price. The work that was done was, no one is happy with the work that was done. They're using it because they paid for it, but you get what you pay for. So if you're out looking for a drone videographer and you get a really low price, it's probably because the quality is going to match that price.
They're just starting, right. Okay.
You just got to be careful on that and really look at it.
Rebuild the community you have here?
Another big thing that's happening is the power of drones to create new opportunities. There's organizations around the country that are around the world that are helping to facilitate new industries. We Robotics works with Nepal when there was the earthquake. They came in and they helped people learn how to fly drones. The local population learned how to fly drones. They had people come in, but they found out that those people that came in didn't know anything about Nepal, so they didn't know where to fly. So they trained the people that lived there how to use a drone so that they could then fly the drones, and then during the recovery phase, those people were starting to develop their own business. So now there's this concept about going into developing countries, working with the populations that's there to develop their own drone ecosystem.
I know Neil had gone to Guatemala in this little village in the mountains, and they started using a drone, and everybody thought it was a UFO. Mm-hmm. So they didn't know, no, seriously, they didn't know what was going on, so they called the policia on them because they were trying to investigate what this, because imagine if you're now in the mountains, you're just trying to get running water, and you see a UFO starting flying around your village. It's a very foreign thing. So that he had to explain, like, no, this is a camera, it's okay, and then he had to put it down because it was just creating such a, like, what is this? It's flying in and out of our villages and up above the mountains. It kind of really stirred the pot. So it's amazing how technology is just leapfrogging, and now here's someone, painting a ship. This was interesting. They're using this to paint ships now?
Now, this is really kind of sort of indicative of a wave of technology that's coming. I interviewed, this is a company in Jacksonville. He's created a drone. These are large tanker ships that, the amount of time that was done painting the ship. And he's working on a drone that basically is it's not autonomous. It runs through its automatic controls. The drone will fly. It's connected to a paint bucket and a power source, and the operator just brings it up to the ship and then presses a few buttons, and it's got its pre-programmed pattern that it flies. The 8 by 12 square or whatever. But the thing about it is that the drone can sense exactly where it is in relationship to the ship, make sure that it's applying the right pressure for the paint. Make sure that it compensates for any wind that's coming. If it's too windy, it'll stop painting. If it's windy just enough, it'll spray either less or more.
It's a perfect paint job.
And that's what it is. The idea is that how much, because a lot of times, the whole thing was about you want to make sure that you have the right amount of paint for the ship, not too much, and you're not wasting it. So the idea was that this would do this quicker and save the labor for the time, and also the safety aspect. The idea was you got people out there up on scaffolds doing this stuff. But it opens up the part about where drones are moving towards, where this automated task technology. And that's really part of where the industry is really looking to get to, is where they can get okay from the federal government to do some of these automated items and be able to have the technology and the software to do that, so it can open up some new opportunities. But this is the company that really from the beginning was going to look at an automated task.
And you got drones inspecting towers. Can you talk about that?
And this is the, forecast a few years ago thought that precision agriculture was going to be the primary use for drones, that was going to be the big...
what is precision agriculture? Like they're going to...
Precision agriculture is getting out using drones to be able to look at data for farms. You know, it's like looking at aerial photography, infrared photography, determining where the where crops are healthy, which ones have infestation, using all these, this technology from the air. They thought that was going to be the number one used for drones, and that's not happened. It's just the ag industry has not moved very fast in that area. But infrastructure inspections has become one of the fastest growing areas for drones, and it opens up the next area that all of the infrastructure operators are waiting for, and that's the idea that you can fly beyond visual line of sight. Right now, all the regulations require that if you have a drone, if you have your own personal drone, any drone, you have to be able to see the drone at all times. You can't fly only on the camera and lose sight of your drone. But the federal government's getting ready to open up some waivers for certain commercial companies that allow them to fly beyond visual line of sight, which means that they can now fly through the camera of the drone or through some other data. What that means, if you're inspecting a pipeline, today it's not very cost effective because if you're a utility company, you got to drive out, fly the drone. When you can't see it anymore, you got to bring it back, drive down the pipeline. So you can imagine what would happen to that industry once the regulation goes in and they can just fly, or go up a tower. Towers are really big because you have to send a guy. You think you've probably seen some of those videos. These guys that have to walk or climb up all these towers just to inspect them. Well, a drone can inspect it, and then if it needs to be repaired, then you can send the guy up. You don't need to send the guy up there and have him exposed to safety and all the time issues. And then some of the cost savings. There's I just interviewed a company that uses drones to inspect the inside of boilers at utility companies. These are big boilers. To do it by hand, or today you'd have to have guys go in with scaffolds, lights, all this kind of stuff. Now they have drones that can do it, and they're saving the utility companies anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 in inspection. And so there's some really big money savings that can be done, but that really requires some changes of the regulations.
And these are some of the major companies to pay attention to?
Yeah, these are companies. Probably the big message here is that the industry is about to go through some major restructuring. Most of the people I talk to are wondering why it hasn't really happened yet. The big thing is that the consensus is that the predictions that were made a few years ago were a lot of hype, that the industry isn't going to grow like they say it was, like they thought it was. There aren't going to be as many jobs as they thought it was. They're already seeing drone manufacturers laying off people, and they expect to see some real restructuring. What's happening is they thought there were going to be drones that would do everything, and what's happening is that companies are actually migrating to certain applications. There's a company that says, I just want to provide the drone that does the infrastructure inspections. I don't care about anything else, so I want to design my drone to do that, or I want to be the drone that does racing. And so what's happening is the industry is starting to consolidate around functions within the industry that they think is going to grow. And the one thing I probably got a message for anybody that's thinking about getting a drone and starting a business, the one thing that I've gotten from everybody when I ask them, because typically I ask people what their advice is for other entrepreneurs, and almost every one of them says, make sure you do your research. They always go back that there's too much hype in the industry, and people got in thinking they were just going to get a drone and go make money, or start a company and it was all going to happen. They said not enough market research behind what you wanted to do, who's your competition, how much you're going to make, how much you're going to invest. They said you got to do that, especially now with everybody rushing into it.
So Randy, we got two questions before we get Steve Tingeris up here. Bonnie Dye was asking, is there any facial recognition software for drones?
There is some stuff that's starting to happen. I think the Mavic had it. I'm not sure if it still has it. When it was first released, it was it was given this idea, it was marketed that it would recognize you and recognize hand controls, so that you could that it would lock on you, your face, and then you could get hand controls to have take a picture, move.
Wow.
But I don't know how it's the first wave. It's probably not as.
I guess that's what's going to be happening in the near future.
Yeah, I mean they're going to try to do that so it because right now the follow me mode is based on you have to have some sort of technology that you put on it. I think they would like to get it so it just follows you.
And then the second question, Dave Kaufman was asking, when you're doing the drone racing, is that also a spectator sport? Do people line up to watch that?
You know, the drone racing league doesn't have any spectators because it's a closed set. It's filmed. But the other races, there's 3 or 4 major leagues that are trying to compete for regular drone events. There are spectator opportunities. It's interesting because, like if you're a NASCAR fan, you're going there to watch the racers. 100,000 people that go to a NASCAR event. The only people that really have ever raced a NASCAR event are the guys on the track and maybe a half a dozen people that have tried it. When you go to a drone racing event, the crowd is not as big, but almost everybody at the event races drones. And so what you find is that the spectators are either part of the event or they're there to support somebody in the event, but they're actually enthusiasts that like and appreciate other people racing the event. But you can go, it's a hard event to watch because these things are small and they race,
zip fast.
They go very fast.
How fast do they go?
The Drone Racing League drone, which is the high performance drone, can go 0 to 80 in less than a second.
In a second?
Yeah. So these are, they're small. They can fit in your hand. So when you watch them race, they have big screens like the ESPN screen, so you see exactly what the pilot sees, which is kind of fun. And you'll see 5 or 6 feeds going on at the same time, so you can watch the screen, and then you can look out and watch them go. The start's really cool because they all just start together and they all just jump up and hover.
And then you just see something zip around.
And then they just fly around and.
So I guess you got to watch the footage because the cameras will follow. All right, so last question. We only have a minute, so if you could just give us some quick regulations, what's going on. So I know you could fly up to, what, 400 feet or 399?
You have to decide it. You have to first of all decide who you are in your drone business. Are you a business or are you a hobbyist?
Let's say you're a hobbyist.
You're a hobbyist. You're a hobbyist. You can't fly over 400 feet. There's a whole. If you go to knowbeforeyourfly.com, they'll give you all the rules. But 400 feet is basically it. Don't fly over people. Don't fly beyond visual line of sight. Be very respectful about where you're flying. Right now, you only have to, if you're going to fly within 5 miles of an airport, you have to notify the airport that you're flying. And there's a few others. There's like 10 or 12 major rules.
What's the rules to flying indoors? Because we didn't look into that one.
There are no rules. The rules of flying indoors are because this space is not regulated by the FAA.
Because we're inside.
You just have to
we're
be,
a mile.
The only thing you have to watch out for is safety and those kind of issues.
Okay.
Still have to have a spotter.
So Randy's going to ask, we're going to have questions after. Let's give Randy a round of applause. Thank you, Randy. If you could go back to Anthony, he's going to mic up Steve.
All right, thanks.
And then we're going to take a group shot. So while Steve is getting mic'd up, we're going to go into artificial intelligence and now a deep dive. I want to just mention that one of our members, Jane, came up to me earlier. Was it your niece? Her granddaughter graduated MIT, and now she's working directly for Elon Musk out of the West Coast. So how cool is that? Let's give a round of applause for that. And the other thing I want you to think about is I have a 21-month-old daughter, and people keep saying, oh, man, you're going to have your hands full when she drives. I said, actually, I'm not. She won't never learn how to drive because my daughter will be telling her friends, my dad and his peers, those crazy SOBs used to get behind the wheel and drive their own cars. And you know how dangerous that is? They've already done the stats that over 1 million lives will be saved once per year worldwide once driverless vehicles by 2012 become the main mode of transportation. So it's pretty amazing the world that we live in and the changes. So just the thing that Susan Garrett shared an article with me. When cars become that safe, do you know what industry gets affected? Car insurance. Because now it's 100 times safer. So the rates will drop down to almost nothing. So then all these insurance companies, their revenues will go down to literally, I don't know how, but it'll go down to, yeah, right there, yeah. So I'm just giving you one point. If you go down the rabbit hole, it will impact every single thing we know of, and it's happening very quickly. So my point of bringing Steve Tingeris of Dabble Labs up here is to tell us as business owners where the opportunities are. So let's give, in just a second, Steve will come up here. Steve is a technology, a person that's been in tech. He's had 4 different tech companies. He now has Dabble Labs, and he's actually creating applications for Alexa. So guys, let's give Steve a round of applause. Come on up, Steve.
All right.
And a fellow Greek.
Hey,
there you go.
yeah.
Tingeris. So, Steve, why don't we just start with, really quickly, you have a background in doing this. You actually helped create the Tampa Bay Wave, which is an accelerator here in Tampa. What do you see for small business owners and just business owners in general? What do we need to be aware of with artificial intelligence? What are some key points that we need to know what's going on here?
The biggest point is that artificial intelligence is going to allow small businesses to do a lot more with a lot less. Fewer people, fewer resources, fewer investment dollars. So that's the good news. The thing that you got to watch out for as a small business is this is happening really fast, and the first mover advantage is big for a business. So you want to kind of start thinking about the pieces of your business that might be affected by technology in general. Like we talk about artificial intelligence, it's a really broad term, and it covers lots of different technologies. But generally speaking, the technology that is being developed that people refer to as artificial intelligence is technology that can replace a lot of what traditionally has been human tasks. And these aren't just industrial tasks like assembly line kinds of tasks. These are now cognitive tasks as well. So things like accounting, law, and lots of professional types of roles. And this is a big slice of the population. So it's a very different shift with this technology, and the impact that it'll have on businesses of all sizes, small and large, is it's already happening, but it's on the very early curve. I mean, we've got a lot of change that we're likely going to see in the coming years.
But if you're not paranoid as a small business owner now, you'll probably get washed out in 2 or 3 years, right?
It depends on the business that you're in, but
I know it's a general term, but you really should be following this along, right?
You should have an idea. You don't need to become a coder or learn to code any of that.
But understand what's going on.
You need to be aware of what's happening, and just you can look at a lot of what's happening in consumer trends and sort of imagine what that might be. Fast forward a few years. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I've been a software engineer and a tech guy for a long time, and I did a presentation for the American Advertising Association in 1995. And one of the groups there afterwards I was talking to, the guy was saying, I can't see this internet thing happening at all. He's like, I just got He said, I just finally got connected to the internet. It took me like 4 hours. I'm configuring my modem and plugging it in on tech support. Like, nobody's going to do that. And it was funny. I had deja vu the other day. I was talking to somebody about the voice assistants. So Amazon Alexa, Google Home, all of those. And he's like, it's never going to happen. I talk to mine. It never understands me. And I'm like, deja vu. It is going to happen. Right now, the technology is for voice and voice assistants is kind of where the internet was, or I'll say the web, not the internet, but the web was in 1995, maybe where mobile apps were in 2007. So if you don't think about it as it is today, imagine what it might look like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and how your business might be affected by that, or how it might change your business. And by affected, it could be a very good thing. You hear a lot of people that focus on the jobs it's going to take and all of these negative things. But there are a lot of good possibilities that go along with that. So it's not all negative. It's change, and change is always hard. But
when we started Tampa Bay Business Owners in '08, the economy was going through a tough time, and we doubled down on social media. Facebook was a new thing. We actually had a gentleman come to one of my friend Joe's events, and he said, "I've been everywhere. I can't find this Facebook. I went to Barnes and Noble. I went to Borders." He was earnestly trying to find the Facebook. Yeah. And then, Joe had to explain to him, it's not a book, So it's funny, but at the time we knew it was going to be big, and we doubled down. Our community was the first to take action. Like we had a carpet cleaner, John Mickle, was getting leads within 6 months because everybody else is like, I'm not getting leads today. Yeah. We were investing, and right now with TBBO, we're going to invest the next 2 years to understand this better than any business community, because I want our business owners to know what's going on as well as the general community. So I'm glad that you're here talking about this. Now, you and I had an interesting challenge. So Steve came to me, he said, Chris, because he knows I'm really entrenched in podcasting, he said, let's see if we could create an app on Alexa to access podcasts. And I'm thinking, man, we're going to make so much money. It's going to be exciting. There's no app to access podcasts on Alexa, right? Can you talk about the interesting thing that we found it very difficult to try and monetize that? And it's something people need to understand. Like right now, you could buy an app.
Yeah.
When you're talking to a voice-activated machine, it also squeezes out some technologist. It's a very unique thing that happened there.
Yeah. So it's a very different ecosystem, and in one where on the developer side of it, it's not super clear at this point in the developmental cycle, I guess. Where you monetize it. So right now we build, they're called skills in the Alexa world, which are sort of analogous to apps in the mobile world. But you don't sell those. Those are just available online, and there's not a monetization model like you've got in the mobile app stores where you can sell apps for a little bit. And this is mostly because a lot of the value that you're creating with these skills is on the back end, and the back end is a collaboration of lots of microservices, they call them, and APIs that are talking to one another to create this value. And so as we were getting into it, and it's funny, I also head up an Alexa developer meetup that happens, and we met last night here locally, and we had a guy that came in from Peru that's a thinker on this topic exactly. Like he's developed one of the early podcasting applications for Alexa. But there's it just becomes part of the Alexa ecosystem. It literally makes Alexa a little bit smarter. It's a skill. And so as we were getting into it, we talked to a few people. They're like, yeah, you could build it. I don't know how that makes money, if it's a commercial thing. But I think where the opportunity really is for business is not so much the technology for the technology's sake, but what that technology can do for your business to accelerate it. I say now in business, everybody's kind of got the same mission, right? Figure out how to go further, faster. That's every business today, and probably I would add with less. So with less risk, unfortunately, in a lot of cases with less people. So everybody is thinking about how do we move quicker, and how do we do that with less overhead, and that is the last competitive frontier. The businesses that move faster win, and what accelerates businesses is technology, and the better the technology, the better your chances are of getting ahead, and being ahead is a big deal when it comes to this kind of technology. It's watching the technology curve over a long period of time, and we've all seen it. It's 20 years ago when I was writing software. A lot of people, when we would go in and talk to business owners and things about technology, we were educating them about what the technology can do. today everybody's technical. Like everybody's got a phone, everybody's flying drones. I mean, there's, everybody is aware of what's, what's going on. But the thing that has sort of become apparent to me is the growth of this technology. It's not just that the technology is getting better, but it's getting better faster. And there's lots of, if you Google any of these topics, you'll get lots and lots of different opinions on it. But I tried to illustrate it in a recent talk that I was doing. But if you think about, like 20 years ago we were here, and now we're here, and it seems like, well, we'll just kind of gradually continue going forward. The cycle time between technology breakthroughs is shrinking rapidly. So I'll try to illustrate it without going too deep into this. But if you were to go for a walk, and let's say that you were going to double your speed every minute. If you started at 2 miles an hour, the first minute, the second minute you're going 4 miles an hour, the next minute you're going 8 miles an hour. Within 10 minutes, you'll be traveling over 2 times the speed of sound. So you think about that and you go, wow, that's pretty crazy. That's exponential growth. If you add on top of that, like shrink the time by half too. So like your first minute, you go 2 miles an hour. The next 30 seconds, you're going 4 miles an hour. The next 15 seconds, you're going 8 miles an hour. That's what's happening. That's so with every technological breakthrough, the next breakthrough becomes easier because we've got better technology to make that next step happen. Does that make sense? So when we look at a technology problem today and we go, that's going to take us 5 years to solve, 6 months from now it only might take a week to solve. Because if there's a breakthrough in between, that breakthrough can accelerate our ability to make the next breakthrough happen. And this is the part that's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but there's more examples of it. So one of the things that got me very interested in Alexa is I sold my last company a few years ago and wanted to dabble. I'm a technologist. I wanted to spend some time looking at new technology, and I'm a sucker for this stuff. So I got the email from Amazon. Hey, on the early invite list to buy one of these things. It's like late 2014, and of course, that's enough to get me to click buy. And I got the Echo, the original one, the black one there, in early 2015. And as soon as I turned it on, I was like, I love this. And how many of you have an Echo? Is that, all right, so
About
you know that
8 people.
Do you remember the first time you turn it on and it goes, hello? You're like, I'm in. What else can we do? But I also thought when I first started playing with it, I'm like, it's going to be a while. Like this is, I just couldn't see it in homes like overnight. I thought it was just going to be a kind of a geek toy, and didn't see it going much further than that, at least not in the near term. Less than 2 years later, it was the #1 selling gadget during Black Friday. In that, when I think back, over the last 20 years,
fast.
I mean, that was just incredible. The developer community that came in behind that, it traditionally, like building a community of people that were spending their time figuring out how to make this work, like that's a long endeavor. If you look at any of the predecessors, and even in mobile, like it's just happened almost overnight.
So that being said, you have the newest, most updated version of Alexa here.
Oh yeah, I've got them all.
So we have it right set up by Susan right there.
Yeah.
So can we do a quick demo? So Anthony, you have it mic'd up? So Alexa's going to talk to us. So show us a little bit of how Alexa works, and show us how you interact with her.
Yeah, so this is, so one of the interesting things, I'm going to turn off
And
this.
guys, if anyone's talking, we could hear you, just so you know. So if you could please not talk while the presenter's talking, especially in the back of the room. Thank you.
I've got Alexa on mute right now, but one of the things that I'm always interested in is watching people use Alexa. So my wife is she's not super technical. And now we have, our whole house kind of wired up for all this stuff, and it's really interesting to see how quickly it's just become a part of your day to day. So something like this, the little things that it can do now, and this is like really, really, really early technology. Something like my wife will be watching TV and she'll say, "Alexa, how old is George Clooney?"
George Clooney is 56 years old.
You know, "Alexa, how many ounces in a cup?" "Alexa, how many ounces in a cup?"
1 cup equals 8 fluid ounces.
"Alexa, how do I spell frivolous?"
Frivolous is spelled F-R-I-V-O-L-O-U-S.
"Alexa, remind me tomorrow to send Chris a thank you for inviting me to be here tonight."
What's that?
No. Alexa,
Alexa doesn't like Chris?
Alexa, add a reminder.
What's the reminder for?
Send Chris an email thanking him for the invite to be here tonight.
When should I remind you?
Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.
Okay, I'll remind you tomorrow at 8 a.m.
And it just really quickly becomes something that is just passive, like you're not even realizing that you're doing it. And I think it's a glimpse, a really clear glimpse from my perspective of what computing might look like a couple of years from now. You think about all of the environments where you could be using this kinds of technology, and this is, when we talk about artificial intelligence, this is a very small slice of it. So this is, in the Alexa world, it's voice recognition. So what's happening when I talk to Alexa, it's taking in the sound. And then on the back end, there's natural language understanding, they call it. So the voice recognition turns the sound into text. That text gets sent to a back end system, and the machine learning on the back end looks at the text and determines intent. What is it that that person is trying to get done, and what's the context of that? And then the skills behind it are used to fulfill that intent. So within everything that we say, the back end is going, all right, what is it that they need? And then from that intent, there's they're referred to technically as slots. So the information that's required from the utterance, what somebody says, to fulfill the intent. So if I say, Alexa, order a pizza, which I can do. Alexa, order a pizza from Domino's.
I couldn't find any enabled video skills. Go to the Music, TV, and Books section of the Alexa app. Enable the video provider you want, then link your account and complete setup.
Alexa, add the Domino's app, or the Domino's skill.
Wow.
Alexa, enable the Domino's skill.
I've enabled it for you, but it requires you to link your account. See the Alexa app to complete setup.
So there's, like I said, this is 2007 mobile world, 1995 but it will quickly get to the point where most of the things that you ask it to do, it will do, and somebody will provide the fulfillment back end to make that happen. Yeah, question.
Hold on, guys. Let me get the mic. I want everybody to hear this. Go ahead. Tell your name first. Name. Tell everybody your name.
Oh, I'm Josie Allen with Upward Aerial Views. If you're in a home with multiple users, is it able to understand all the users?
It's not right now. So the Google Assistant, Google Home, is maybe a little bit further on, and it can recognize different users by their voice. What I can do now is, because we have multiple Alexa switch accounts.
Now in Alexander's account.
So that's my son's account. So we've got multiple accounts, and you can switch back. So he's got an Alexa, an Echo device in his room. So you can switch, but that's something that is a big focus right now, and not just understanding like different people, but also and the difference in their voice than adults, so that you can regulate what content they get. Accents, are also something. So all of that is a big focus, and not far off, but not quite there yet.
Steve, do you have an affiliate with that? Because I think someone just bought one of them. They says $230 online.
What's that?
You should have an affiliate. Someone just bought one of those things.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah,
All right.
yeah, okay.
Guys, let's give Alexa a round of applause. Steve, come on back up here.
Yeah.
It gets very murky because Alexa is a computer, but it has female attributes, a voice. It becomes very personal. It's like that movie with the actor Joaquin Phoenix. He fell in love with the voice. It's very confusing.
Yeah.
That you're talking to a computer, but she's going to sound more and more like a human. And I want to ask you that, since we're towards the tail end. I know people are thinking about that. I know the debate is going on with artificial intelligence. They believe that it might replace humanity. Some people, because it's going to, eventually they believe that it'll get self-aware.
Yeah.
So can you just talk about your insights into that? Because I know you follow those debates closely.
Yeah. So for anybody that's interested in this stuff, and it can be a mind bender. There's all kinds of. If you search the term singularity, that would be maybe the jumping off point into some of this stuff. If you're interested in it, you've got a lot of really smart people on both sides of this argument that have very different opinions. On one side, there's this idea of, that I explained earlier, accelerating returns. And the idea of the law of accelerating returns is not really a law, but that's what it's referred to, says that it's inevitable. Because of this curve, we will get to the point where things like whole brain emulation, which is taking a human brain and digitizing it so that there will be consciousness, or even just strong AI. And strong AI is AI that is self-aware. It can think. The other side of it says there's this. It's referred to as the complexity break, and the complexity break says that the deeper that you get into a very complex problem, and certainly when it comes to complex problems, creating consciousness is a complex problem for sure. But the deeper you get into complex problems, the harder the problem is to solve. So you might think you're really close. So we see things like driverless cars and autonomous robots, and we anthropomorphize, I think is the term. So we see it and we think like a human. We go, oh, it's really, really close. When in fact today, most of what we see is just really, really good algorithms and great systems behind those algorithms. And so it is a type of intelligence for sure, but it's not the same as human intelligence, and from my perspective. But that said, a submarine swims, but it's not a fish, but it still swims, and a plane flies, and it's not a bird, and it still flies. So it is intelligence. It's a type of intelligence. But the complexity break, you can feel like you're really close and in fact be far away. And for every question that gets answered, 10 questions at least get created. And so I don't know. My personal opinion is that I think we're a ways off, because there's consciousness is something that nobody really understands, like how it works. And, even in nature, it happened by mistake, not by design. So nobody's sure. And there's a lot of, there's a great book, if you're interested in this stuff, called Quantum. I can't remember the author, but it's a mind bender. It's a great one if you like this. But quantum mechanics and all of the things behind how things really work, we don't really understand yet. That said, this technology is going to be is intelligent in a way, so it can process much faster.
Talk about what happened with Facebook a couple of days ago. I don't know. Some people might be aware, but talk about the quandary they fell in.
So this is as much as you can get from some posts online about did you shut it. So Facebook and their quest to have AI to deal with messaging and people online. Tried to train 2 AIs by getting them to talk back and forth to one another. And as the reports go, the AI started developing its own language so that it could communicate more efficiently between, the 2 bots.
So the people had no clue what that language was.
Yeah.
That's scary. So the bots created their own language amongst each other.
But it's not as scary.
I get from a technologist where you're coming from. I'm just coming from
like they aren't thinking in the way that we think. And I say they. I mean, it's
still amazing to think that they created something.
It's a really, really fast system of of problem solving. They have a problem, and they go through as fast as they can, how they solve the problem. So for anybody that's interested in chess, I've loved chess since I was a kid, and I've been very interested in how computers play chess. And it's a great way to kind of wrap your head around, and this is probably, I don't know how much time we have, but this is probably a good way to sum it up. But there's humans against computers at chess never win anymore. So the chess program that you've got on your laptop will beat grandmasters today. But the way that computers play chess is very, very different than the way that humans play chess. So in chess, the way we would go at it as humans is kind of 2 things. We've got the logical moves, like, okay, if I go here and my opponent goes there, the point value of my piece is, over here. If I risk them over there, like logically, okay, that makes sense. But what makes it very different is it's not just logic when you're playing. You've also got instinct. I've watched how they play, and they're protecting that piece. I don't think they're going to take that bet. So logically, I'm making a bad move, but instinctively, I go, I don't think they're going to bite. Or I think they'll back off. And that's how great chess players have gotten great. The best ones, they logically can think ahead quite a few moves, but they're also very instinctual, and they can, read how their opponent's playing. Machines don't need to do that. They can process every single possible move and play 100% logic before you could even get close to considering. So logic, or the instinct part of it's not necessary, although there are from the Go computer that the Go champions were just beat. There is evidence that they're bluffing and doing some other things, but it's still just part of really, really fast processing algorithms, logic, and so it is intelligent. It's just a different kind of intelligence than what humans bring to the table.
And this is a program that James Van Pruyen showed me called ManyChat that helps you kind of use artificial intelligence to communicate with people through Facebook. So that's just the messengers page. And it's amazing how real the conversation looks compared to the automated stuff, even though this is automated. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was playing around with it today, but at the summit, we'll go into a deep dive because I'm just starting to understand this, and I want you guys to understand it fully. So as I learn it, we'll teach it, and you have some other experts you're going to turn us on to that we're going to feature.
Yeah, you can do a lot of this stuff yourself. There are platforms too.
What are some tips you could give us as we finish this up on SEO and artificial intelligence? Any tips as business owners? What will count more? Because the way we search right now tactically is changing. We're going to be talking to the Alexa, and she's going to be giving us almost like advice, but really not. How is she going to be getting her search results?
It's not going to be a whole lot different than it works today in terms of priorities. So the source of the best results are going to get prioritized. So if you're building back-end skills or agents, AI agents, whatever agent provides the best answer is going to get prioritized. In the same way that today, whatever website provides the best information is going to get prioritized. So you'll have the top level assistants, and maybe Amazon Alexa is one, and Siri is going to be another one, and Microsoft has Cortana, and Google has the Google agent. But those are all looking at sources across all different aspects. So like we're building an agent right now that does certain types of diagnostics for spine issues. And if that agent becomes the agent that knows more about that than any other agent, when Alexa or Siri or whoever gets that query from a user, it's going to be smart enough to go find the best source of that information. So like SEO, if you decide to get into this and build something, pick the piece of it that you can be really great at and be the best at it.
Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple questions, and then we'll make sure that if you guys have more questions, Randy and Steve will be here to answer. But Bonnie is asking, how long before Alexa starts reciting ads targeted to our habits? Do you know if they've figured out how to do that?
There's not an advertising model that is a part of it right now. I mean, I can't imagine that there won't be. Can I grab something real quick?
Go ahead.
One new device that came out that, let me see if I brought it. I think I did. That some of you might have seen is the Alexa Wand. This is new. I don't know. Has anyone seen this?
What is that?
The Alexa Wand. This is not connected here locally, but it's got a magnet so it can sit on your refrigerator. It's also got a barcode scanner. So when I run out of food, I can just scan it, or I can say, "Hey Alexa, what's the price of peanut butter?" And
they'll deliver it via drone with Whole Foods or whatever.
Yes, so that's
it's crazy. They got it already locked up. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's telling me that but that's, I think, Amazon. I don't know inside of what Amazon's planning, but they kind of control the whole distribution chain. So it's almost like they might not need to have advertising.
Here's a question that you might have already answered, but Jason Mastropietro asks, Alexa strikes me as the Macintosh of our age, and Amazon acting like Apple did in the 80s, as there is not the opportunity to monetize for developers. Which company or companies offer a platform for developers to monetize, such as the Macintosh OS suite provided in the 80s or 90s? I guess, where do you think developers can monetize?
I think developers need to help help their clients figure out how to leverage this technology to, like I said earlier, go further faster. And right now it's very, very new, so there's a ton of possibilities. So we're working on, with one of our clients, a voice dashboard. And so if you're familiar with like a business dashboard that you pull up in a browser and you can see all your stats, this is the same thing, except everybody's got an Echo device by them, so they can say, hey, what are sales in the Northeast region? And it'll tell them. Or what's our inventory levels at this point. So at any point that they're near one of these devices, they can get real-time access to any key performance or business metric that they need.
Can you change the texture of the voice? Like right now, Alexa's a female, but if you want Mr. T, like the TomTom, can you do that?
Yeah, so Alexa is the brand behind the Echo ecosystem. The technology that Alexa is built on top of is available and can be used. It's actually called Lex, L-E-X. So if you go to Amazon Web Services, there's kind of a developer version of this where you can create your own Alexa on top of that technology that powers Alexa.
So as you guys are seeing, each question opens up more questions. So I'm going to ask like two more because the questions are really interesting, but this is a never-ending thing. We're seeing it just in these simple questions. How do you feel about the story of Alexa, and I've never heard of this before, this is interesting, calling the cops on a husband and wife fighting? Do you feel like that was a violation of rights? I had no clue. Have you heard about that story?
No. I mean, Alexa can't dial. Alexa doesn't
Unless
think.
maybe the wife asked to call the cops, right?
Yeah. I mean, there is messaging, voice messaging now, and video messaging, but that would need to be initiated by somebody.
We'd have to look into that.
Yeah.
How long do you think it will be before quantum computing is functioning to the level needed to support AI in regards to supporting consciousness? I guess you were talking. It's going to take a long time. You said.
No, by 2020.
By 2020.
Yeah. So I mean, there's
seriously
math. Yeah. So
that's the equation.
The human brain operates at like 38.8
It's kind of scary, right?
Yeah, I
Take
mean,
that off.
there is, most people think that by 2020 you'll have processing technology that is equivalent to the human brain if we keep seeing doubling in processing power. So the raw computing possibility will be there by 2020.
And this is something that intersects with what Randy was talking about, what you're talking about. I was talking to someone about driverless vehicles, and he's a drone guy. And I said, when do you think we'll be able to fly up or whatever? He goes, no, what they're going to do is they're going to have drones that could pick up and fit the driverless vehicle in it. And it'll pick you up in your vehicle and just fly you to where you need to go. So it's amazing how the hybridization of this technology is going to play out. We don't know yet, but that's one of the theories. Now, last question. I know you don't have a lot of time. We're going to be covering this. By the way, guys, at the Artificial Intelligence Summit, I need your help. So if you guys know any experts or anything, we're still looking for people. But that's why we're doing a full day to cover all the questions and making sure you get it. But this is one. Does Alexa use SEO when doing searches? And I'm assuming they're asking, where does it pull its SEO? Does it pull it from Bing, Google, or Yelp? Like, where does Alexa kind of favor on the searches?
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to 100%.
We'll figure that out.
I'm not sure what where it goes for its answers unless it's using a specific skill. I think that's probably something that Amazon is keeping their proprietary.
And Randy, I'll bring you up in a second if you know this answer, but I'm going to ask you, Steve, do you know anything about their drone program, their drone delivery program with Amazon?
I don't know.
Someone
saw
did ask that question.
Their patent release, that was kind of an interesting read. But
Randy, come up here and answer that question because I know everybody wants to know that, and we'll end on that note. But tell us what the drone, you guys are familiar that Amazon's delivering with drones? Are you familiar that they have patents for mothership drones that will hover? You guys, yeah. I'll let Randy tell us what's
like
going on.
Like the beehive?
Yeah, huge motherships above each, all over the world. So then the drone comes up, gets the package, comes out to your house. But tell us what's going on. No joke. That's not. Tell us what's going on with drone. Here, come get the seat and we'll do a picture. But you're one of our guests. Sit here. Tell us what's going on with drones and Amazon. People are curious. Seems like Amazon's topic of conversation. So I think Jeff Bezos is doing something right. He was the richest man for. And he's about to overturn Gates. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know exactly what Amazon's doing with their delivery concept. I can tell you some of the other companies and some of the concepts they have. UPS has probably got one that's very innovative, and what UPS has found out is that when they're out driving their trucks in the rural areas, you got that county line road. Someone's got this long driveway that goes up to their house. And they have to drive that truck all the way up and come all the way out. They realize that if they could just put a drone on the truck and have that drone drop off the package to that long driveway, that would save them all that time to drop off the package, the gas, and all that. So what they're working on a vehicle that has a drone that actually rides on the top of the truck, and as they drive along, they put the package in. Drone will drop it off at the house and then come back and meet the truck someplace down the road.
Wow.
They figure it'd save them millions of dollars a year in time and gas by using a drone in that way. Amazon, I haven't heard, the things that people talk about is, from the distribution center, how they have to get around. And I think in Scotland is one of their demonstration projects where they have a distribution center and the drone is got a certain number of clients where they're testing this, being able to get to the client. The issue is, you got to pick up, they have to send the drone out, make sure the drone isn't going to be impeded by anything along the way. The drone has to drop off the package someplace where the person can get it, and all that stuff has to be worked out logistically. There's also someone that has an idea that is really much more radical in that. And that is that it isn't going to be Amazon that has 1 million drones that goes out and delivers, that we're all going to have our own delivery drone. So when we want something, we send the drone to the store to go get it.
Yeah, right? It makes sense.
And not worry about Amazon just sending something back to us. So there's this idea that that we have the delivery drones going out and getting what we need whenever we need it.
Just so you guys know, I've seen Bezos speak on this. He is not interested in replacing the United States Postal Service or any of that. What he said is, because that's a whole different business model, he said that they use drones to help implement areas that are rural that cannot get the packages, and that's what they're testing. He doesn't want to get into the full delivery, but he wants to make sure that the packages get there on time. Steve, any final thoughts for everybody? This is fascinating stuff, but anything you want to leave out of the business community? This is the first time that this has been brought into the main stage here, and I'm excited that we're able now to infuse our community, the whole business, on this information. Anything you want us to leave with?
I would just restate that be proactive about what's going on. I mean, it's really important, and you don't need to be technical to get it. A lot of this stuff is, when you just kind of back off and you go, what might the world look like if Alexa did recognize everything that I said? And I'm using Alexa as an example, but this technology is happening quick, or it's developing quick. Be proactive about learning about it, and I don't mean learning about it in the the geeky sense, but learning about it in terms of what it could do for your business and how it might change the look of your business in a few years.
Who here is going to be investing in their education when it comes to artificial intelligence in the future? I hope most of us, right? Yeah. For those of you that are our guests, I would highly recommend that you join us on that journey. We're going to be doing quite a bit of education within that. We are going to be working with a little car company called Tesla, and we're going to be rolling out some special education with them in the near future. So I would highly recommend, if you want to be part of Tampa Bay Business Owners, talk to Lorraine before you leave and become part of our community. This has gotten me really excited because I love this stuff. And back in 2008, when I was teaching people about Facebook and people were looking for the books, I just want you guys to understand, the one thing I wish I knew back then, Steve, one, to buy the stock at 18, that's for sure. But the other is, I understood that it was powerful, but I didn't understand exactly how powerful. Now I have the wherewithal. That's why with podcasting, I was able to capitalize on it in a major way to now create the conference. I have one of the largest conferences in the world out of Orlando that we're expecting over 1,000 people to show up at. I'm telling you right now, you're all sitting on a gold mine. As you start learning this, there's going to be applications that you're going to be able to use for your industry that will change it. This man came to PodFest with an idea, and now he's one of the top experts in the world about podcasting, but he's our city planner. He's taking care of the Vinnick project. So this is kind of the innovation that's going on. Don't miss out on it. Over the next 3 years, I'll give you the tools, but think outside the box. And don't say to me, Chris, what Steve talked about today doesn't apply to me. It applies to every single one of us. And we try our best to bring that education to the fold. So make sure you listen to what both of them said today, because I guarantee you, everything they're talking about is already affecting our lives right now. When I went to a conference, I kept saying to someone, this is the future, and they all kept saying, no, this is the now. Because I was looking at the stuff as they go, this is out now, and I was like, man, I'm living in a time warp. We all are. Cassette tapes. Kids don't even know what that is, right? Now I know. I'm like, I don't understand. Anyways. What we're going to do is we always take a group shot. I'd love if we could get everybody up on the stage. Anthony is going to take a picture. Neil, can you come with...